Good morning. I wanted to jump right into the coaching corner topic because it's been really interesting with some of the comments over the last couple of weeks, as well as just things still keep coming up with clients that I'm having these conversations with. So it's been a lot of fun to really recognize how much commonality we all have with some of the things that we go through. And it might not be the experiences that are exactly the same, but it's about reaction and exercises and tools to help us when we're experiencing either anger, frustration, anxiety, things like that. There's usually something that we can all relate to as far as terms like triggers and toxic people and things like that. So I really wanted to, if you haven't watched the video on triggers, it was 2 Fridays ago. And then last week, I really had some reflection from some of the comments and talking about boundaries and maybe people that no matter how well we try to position a trigger plan to are going to be purposefully triggering us. And if we can't shift those relationships, we have to make some strong boundaries or actually give ourselves permission to not have those people around anymore. And so this week, what really came up was, okay, I have this trigger plan, or I've made some boundaries, but what do I really do with that little part where the execution is next? And how do I have space for some really powerful conversations with people? So I want to talk about positioning either your trigger plan or powerful conversations. And it's not with those toxic people. Sometimes it's just best to leave those to really small, like this, just that friendship isn't working out and I really would love to wish you well and walk away. And that's fine to not really dive into all the details and go through them. So what happens when it's somebody you care about and you love and these things keep happening? And not only are we trying to put together a trigger plan so we're not reactive and we can have kind of a calmer reaction, whether things are good or bad, but it's all about how do I enhance this relationship and how do I keep growing with this person who is a good part of my life that might trigger me a little bit. So with that in mind, I want to talk about positioning and positioning difficult conversations, because if you're being triggered, it's obviously something that is reoccurring and troublesome to you. So what that really looks like, I love to help people break down those conversations. So we need to talk about being assertive and what that means. So not passive, not aggressive, not passive aggressive, but assertive really means I'm going to tell you the way that I feel and what I really need. And I'm also going to honor your feelings and your needs in the conversation. And so that's more of an art form that might not come naturally, especially if we're triggered. It's oftentimes when that assertiveness has to be thought through. So when I put together a conversation, even in my head now, I have a couple things that I do. First, positioning. I really come at people and say, hey, you're important to me. Here's why I want to have this conversation. I care about you. I have to work with you. Your growth is important to me. Something along those lines. So have something really positive to share with that person and how important they are to you. And the next thing would be to go ahead and tell them a little about the thing that keeps happening and the way it makes you feel. And not in a, like, we want to talk through this because this is the way it makes me feel, and it's probably not even intentional on your end. Let's assume it's not intentional. And I would love to then, in turn, I'd like to tell people, I really thought about this because it's important to me. And are you open to talking about my needs? And then I'm going to create some space that you can tell me about your needs too. I mean, I can make assumptions about why this is going on, but maybe if we have a nice conversation, I can share with you, and then I'm going to create and hold some space for you to share with me as well. And really just laying a foundation for a positive, intentional conversation can really be the only thing you actually need. Like sometimes people just feel like they're working against each other, and when you take the step to create that space, it almost just can relieve that thing. And they're really eager to hear because you've come at them in a rational state of mind, which I can say when I'm triggered, not always rational. So if I can approach that conversation more rationally, they really kind of lean in, and you'll notice that they start to listen more because they know that they're going to also have an opportunity to speak. So it's that they're important to you, the trigger, and a little bit about the emotion around it. And then I usually would break down, if you have that mini plan, that trigger plan, I would put together 3 talking points around that. So limit yourself to 3. I know that I'm somebody that gives way too much detail. So I have to help myself be a little bit more concise so that person doesn't feel like I'm talking at them. And then I will give an actual assertive statement. Here's this that's occurring. This is the way it makes me feel. And I'd really like, with your needs in mind, to put together something we can both agree on. I have initial thoughts to a plan, but I'd love to hear your ideas around that plan and how we can partner on this. So I hope that is helpful when you think about positioning your trigger plan. I know I've worked through with a couple clients their plan, and they're all excited and they think it's such a positive thing. And then they're like, crap, I don't want to have that conversation. There's stuff, like, especially if this triggers happen for a long time, there's just kind of stuff where you get a little bit stubborn, or it's hard to be the one that always makes the first step, or something like that might be holding you back. So if you work through a positioning separate outside of your trigger plan to position the conversation, it really might help you with your approach. And it might kick off your conversation wonderfully. So with that in mind, I went a little bit longer on that subject. So next week, I'm gonna talk about, what if there's a layer of pressure from someone else? So there's a boss giving this person pressure who's giving you pressure. How can you actually if it's triggering you, how can you put a plan in place that actually partners with that person in the middle part of that conversation? So it's somebody, a mom giving this person pressure who's now giving, a mother-in-law situation, something like that, where the person that's actually triggering with you is feeling pressure from somebody else. How can you partner with that conversation to rewrite a story and kind of move forward in that way? So I'll dive in a little bit deeper. That's come up a lot with clients lately. So if you're feeling like the person you're angry with is actually, try to recognize if their behavior is from another layer. Somebody else in their life is applying pressure or a situation, and you can partner with them in a totally different way to rewrite the story about this thing that keeps happening. So we'll dive into that next week. I hope, feel free to contact me if you're struggling with any of these things. I'm a coach, so I do coaching, and if you need short or long-term coaching, I'm definitely here to help. Sometimes we love putting these videos out here because we want to trickle some of these ideas in and give you actual things that you can practice. But if you need help and support practicing, please feel free. That's my business, and that's what I do. So I love to help others in an impactful way and help you practice some of these tools. So feel free to reach out. I will see you all next week. Have a great weekend.